Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of TIR Presents Beyond the Red Zone. I am your kind of host, Jason Miles, and I've been hyping up the Beyond the Red Zone fantasy draft, and I effed up. I thought we were going to do the draft today, and those people responded, they commented like, that seems a little early. And you're right. It is a little early. But if you are a patron, I know a few of you guys watch, I will have the link so you can be a part of the draft, craft your team. We will have a TIR team, the TIR Central Committee team. We all the TIR people. I am going to hit up the Left Reckoning guys. We talked about this last year. We didn't do it. So it's definitely going to be like a Left Reckoning squad. So you'll be facing off against some of your favorite people in this leftist podcast field. So I'm excited about it. I hope you're excited about it. The music you hear, some new music. It's supposed to be gothy, new wave metal. I don't know if I pulled it off. I'll ask the real host of this show, Mac. Please welcome Mac.
What is going on, everybody?
Infinite Content says, Jason, never do your draft before preseason games. And I call it the Michael Vick rule.
Well, we're going to do it the 29th. We're going to do it the 29th. And then what we're going to do is today we record, we're going to put it all out there for everybody to see. And, in between picks, we'll do our typical bullshit and banter. Maybe we draw up a few big news nuggets if there's any. But we're just going to focus on the things that you should focus on when conducting a fantasy draft, and that shit talking everybody and seeing who takes a kicker first. Like that's what you do.
What do we have to do to get you down here to Mexico for the draft?
Well, dude, I wish I could, but literally 2 days later, I'm going to Cleveland for 9 days.
Oh, you lost a bet or something?
No, dude, man, I love Cleveland. It's home. I need to get the fuck out of the South, man. I'm gonna hit a couple Guardians games. See my brother, my sister. I might stop by and see my father. I don't know yet, depending on how I'm feeling. And nobody judged me for that. My dad and I have a very complicated relationship. So
most of us do.
Yeah,
you're not the only one. You are not a man alone.
Thank you. And yes, it is a PPR draft. It's going to be 16 players. 2 running backs, 2 wideouts, a tight end flex, with a defense, special teams, kicker, and a QB, obviously. So I kept it pretty simple. That way, if you don't know shit about fantasy football, you can just jump in. Kept it as simple as I possibly could. So we'll see how this unfolds.
I'm just going to take Broncos players because I just love my team that much.
You just got a bunch of fucking Broncos. I mean, the thing is, like, if you did the QB, the wideouts, maybe even the running back should be fine.
I think the Broncos offense could be legit.
I mean, it could. I'm interested to see how Russell picks up the playbook. Like, that dude is a diligent QB. Yes. The man knows his craft. But like the systems, it's different, and the thing is, it's like most offenses have a lot in common, but it's the verbiage. I mean, I've talked to a couple wideouts and running backs that have moved teams, or maybe they've moved leagues, they went from the NFL to Canada. And they're like, dude, the verbiage some of these asshole offensive coordinators and head coaches come up with, I mean, they're like, why? I spoke to this guy who played running back, and he was on a practice squad for a couple years in the NFL, played a couple games, and then he realized he wasn't going to get the playing time he wanted. So he's like, fuck it, I'm going to Canada. And like all his boys were like, yo, it's 3 downs, 10 yards, it's a passing league. And he's like, I'm a 6-foot guy, used to play wide receiver in high school and some in college. Like, I'll be fine. Right. So I hit him up, and he's like, dude, it's stupid. This is stupid as shit. Just changing. He's like, it's literally the same routes, but the verbiage is so different. He's like, I don't know why they do this. Like, you're not inventing anything new, man. It's just like switching some things around and putting people in motion, and he was so mad. But I mean, he's still in the league, making money playing football. So, I mean, I give him credit.
The thumbnail image today is one that is easy to recognize. It is Bill Russell, the late Bill Russell, who passed away this past week. Probably one of the greatest players of all time.
For me, he is the greatest player of all time. We like to chalk up championships as a barometer. 13 years, the guy won 11 of them. And the last 3 he won, if I'm remembering correctly, he was player coach. Right? And on top of that, he played for Red Auerbach, who everybody likes to give him like this. Look at him. He in the NBA in the late 50s and early 60s, he was bringing in black players because he believed in integration. No, he didn't. He was still an old crotchety white fuck that wanted to win basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew how to do that, was actually expanding your player pool. And, you get a generational talent like Bill Russell, and he was. I mean, the guy played in 963 games over 13 years, averaged 15 points, 22 rebounds a game,
Jesus,
4 assists, 11-time NBA champ, 12 All-Stars, 5-time MVP, right? And made the Hall of Fame. And now I'm going to go ahead and say this now, and anybody in chat wants to get butthurt a little bit, I don't give a shit. I want to hear, oh, well, back in the 60s, you had to go be a plumber in the offseason because, like, you was a bum. No, bitch. There were fewer teams. You had talent more located in each team than we do now. So I would dare argue that the league was harder to win back before expansion diluted quite a bit. And we're seeing a bit of an equilibrium. But, like, let's face it, we're always, like, I mean, I hate to say this if there's any Sacramento Kings fans out there. Y'all ain't gonna be good for a long time. That front office sucks, right? Like, they're always gonna be bad until that team gets sold and you move in some new front office and scouts, right? Like, we're always gonna have these have-nots. But like, I get in this argument all the time, right? Like, the league had more talent located in fewer teams, so it was harder to win. Like, you had to go through a gauntlet every single game. There were no gimmies, like. Let's not act like we don't have our stars, LeBron James and all the big names who are like, you know what, Sacramento's coming to town, I'm sitting, right? Or, for years, remember, when Vancouver, before the Grizzlies moved south, and even their first 4 years in Memphis, well, the Grizzlies are on the schedule, I'm a sit. I tweaked a hammy, but I'm gonna take this game to rest because I know my guys are still gonna win by 15 without me on the floor.
Oh, when I was a young Warriors fan, they were not very good.
Oh no, and it's just like, dude, I'm a Cavs fan. Like I was
Another team people forget.
Yeah, I was a dude that would like go to Cavs games because they're cheap as fuck, thinking I'd get to see, a big name. And they're like, nah, they're all sitting. I'm just
Coach Will is in the chat, and Will can attest to this. Warriors tickets were something people gave away in the Bay Area before they started like really winning.
Oh man!
Before even the We Believe year of
dude,
I can't think of his name right now.
When LeBron left the first time, Jason, I went up, and it was the year they drafted Kyrie. So I'm pretty pumped because I'm I'm in North Carolina, like I'm back at home, and Kyrie, you only got to see Kyrie for 10 games in college before he, quit essentially. Well, he got hurt, but then he was like, I'm not coming back. And so I'm like excited, and I'm like, they're playing the Warriors, dude. I'm like, I'm gonna get to see Clay, like early Clay, early Steph, these dudes that just got drafted last year too. Neither of them played. And Golden State like won by 25 or some nonsense. And I'm just like, fuck this, dude. Like, I should not have to be a Cavs fan and have it hurt this much. Like I should have my appreciation and my love reciprocated. And it didn't. It wasn't.
I mean, you're a real, because you're from the Cleveland area. Let's people forget. They probably think you're from the South. You are not. And the Cleveland area, baseball, football, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you haven't tried to snipe me because I am a Broncos fan. Just for those 2 years.
No, man. Like, cause like my mom was a Browns fan until they fired Schottenheimer. Like, she loved Marty Schottenheimer. And when they shit canned him, you know how big of a turncoat my mother is? She became a Steelers fan. Right?
Really?
Yes.
Damn.
Yes. And she sat and watched both those AFC title games. Had her heart broken.
I mean, look, remember, I watched those Super Bowls.
Yeah, they weren't pretty. Honestly, and I tell, like, I wrote for a Browns outlet for a couple of years, and I tell like older Browns fans, I'm like, you guys would have got boat race too. Like, it would have been good.
Yeah, the Niners are going to beat the shit out of anybody. And that year, to this day, is very hard for me to deal with because I live in the Bay. The Raiders were gone. People forget the Raiders were gone. Everybody was a Niners fan. So everyone at school, how do you think I got treated with my bright ass orange Bronco hoodie? Because I'm trying to be a tough guy.
Oh,
I'm gonna go to school with not a good look.
Yeah, I mean, see, I got a pass because I'm like all Ohio everything except professional football, right?
Oh, who's your squad?
I mean, the Patriots are my team, and they have been. When I get some fuckers that are like, "Oh, you only started liking him because of Brady," I'm like, "Ask me who my first Pats QB was." And when I say Scott Zolak, they say,
"Oh, you're a Zolak guy." Okay,
and they were like,
Eason.
Dude, Eason was a little bit before me. I think I was born in 81. They played in that Super Bowl where they got destroyed by the Bears, 86. So, like, for me, it was just like moving people on a TV screen that I really thought was cool, and what drew me into the Pats originally was just the Minuteman. Like, that was the best logo in football to me, right? And then it was Zolak. And then when they went to the
1-in-15 Zolak?
Oh, yeah, that one. And for me, like, as a young kind of like coming into my teenage years, I wore it as a badge of honor that all my favorite teams sucked except the Buckeyes. But the Buckeyes would always let you down at the end of the year. Like, they would always manage to fuck up against Michigan under John Cooper, right? So I only got to see like one Rose Bowl, and that was the big one with Jake Plummer, and
oh wow,
that Arizona State team. Before Cooper was finally fucking shit canned. And then we got Tressel in there, and that was great until it wasn't, but like,
Coach Will shares in your liking teams that didn't win. We grew up, and when I met him in high school, he was a diehard Indiana Pacers fan.
Ooh.
Like die hard, loves Reggie Miller. We got to get him on one of these days. It's just we'll have a show about talking about lovable losers. But the Pacers the Patriots weren't necessarily losers. They lost a lot of playoff games, much like those Pacers teams.
Yeah, but by the early 90s, dude, you got to think they were dog shit bad. Like, they were so bad that literally Massachusetts refused to fund a stadium for them, and they were getting ready to move to Rhode Island. And it wasn't until Bledsoe, they did the draft of Bledsoe, and they get Parcells in, and they start kind of pulling wins out, and then they play in that Super Bowl where they lost against Green Bay, where a fucking kick returner wins the MVP. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But they started getting some games under their belt. I mean, you got to think, the only reason that stadium was built, the only reason Gillette was built, was because the old ownership sold out to Bob Kraft. That was it. Like, the state of Massachusetts was done dealing with the Patriots. They were like, you know what? Fucking walk to Rhode Island because you still represent New England, right? This isn't the Boston Patriots of the AFL. They didn't give a shit anymore. But when Kraft bought that team for like pennies on the dollar, like it was for nothing compared to what that team's worth now. They were like, okay, well, we could probably get him a new stadium now. And Kraft got along to, he went along to get along. And then now you have probably one of the most modern stadiums in the NFL, arguably in athletics. And, so like the Pats, I don't feel bad about being a Pats fan because, like I said, I remember the 1-15 Zolak year. I remember Bledsoe's, rookie season at like 3-13.
Yeah. Who won the rookie of the year that year?
Yeah, and he threw the ball almost 500 times.
You remember who won the rookie of the year that year? When there was who's going to be number one, him or I've used him as an avatar. I can't even think of his name.
It was Dave McGuire.
No,
or was it Myra?
Dave McGuire is who I used, but it wasn't.
Yeah,
he was on the Seahawks. He was a guy that he came out of Notre Dame.
Yeah, it was Rick Mirer. Mirer. Yeah,
Rick Mirer. Rick Mirer was a rookie of the year that year, and he was a number 2 pick, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're right.
It was like, who's going to go number 1, Bledsoe or Meyer?
I think. I mean, for me, I appreciate Brady. I know I was watching greatness, but my Patriots quarterback, to the day I die, is always going to be Drew Bledsoe. That man almost died for that team. Like, when he took that hit and it destroyed blood vessels in his lungs and he almost drowned to death. And he didn't even really get to enjoy the success. He got a ring from the Pats. But then what did Belichick do? What he does with almost every fan favorite veteran, he jettisons him off to Buffalo, which really hurt me because he's still in the division.
And he had some decent seasons in Buffalo.
Dude, he had decent seasons when he left Buffalo and went to Dallas even, to play for Parcells again. So
I think we forget about Drew Bledsoe because any journey, I don't care what sport you are, maybe basketball is a little different. I think basketball is a little different, especially because players move so frequently post the 90s. But definitely in football, if you're a journeyman player, regardless of what you do, people forget about you. No one remembers Curtis Martin.
Yeah, and what's funny, he only played for 2 teams.
Yeah.
And I think he's the 4th. He's got the 4th highest or 5th highest rushing totals.
He balled out. Balled out.
I was crushed when New England was like, "No, you can walk." I was like, "What? No."
Yeah,
no.
He's still got 10 years left in him. Terrell Owens, another guy people forget. Like, he balled out for a few teams. He balled out for the Niners later.
Yeah,
definitely balled out for the Cowboys. Balled out for the Eagles. It's like we forget this. Basketball, I think, is a little more forgiving because you have players like Dennis Rodman.
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, and you got to think too. Like you said, I would probably say mid-90s. You started seeing more player movement because the NBA was the first league to kind of realize the players make. They're why everybody comes. You have more fans of individual players in the NBA than you do of actual teams.
I agree.
Like, I will argue that until I'm blue in the face. That's why, I mean, listen, how many times have you seen one of your friends that's a huge basketball fan and say they, are LeBron fans. They got a first time around in the Cavs. They've got a Miami. You know, they've got a second time around with the Cavs, and now they got a Lakers jersey. Like, and I get it. You know, I'm not. Oh, dude, yeah, dude, I have a Shaq Cavaliers jersey. That should tell you something, right? I'm a Cavs fan, but I just always appreciated Shaq. I really love the dude, but I could never like openly cheer for him because he was just too good. I was like, he's got enough fucking fans. I like a bunch of losers. Like, I can't be seen actively enjoying Shaquille O'Neal's game.
Well, Infinite Content says one of the few journeymen I say is it's still a legend is prime time. I agree. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders bounced around. I don't even know if anyone remembers he was a Falcon first.
Well, no, remember, he probably does because he also played for the Braves at the same time. That's how he did.
I actually forgot he played baseball.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great conversation with Deion and John Elway where they're both talking about how great Steinbrenner was to them.
Oh, God.
How much they loved Steinbrenner.
I mean, is there any more owner? Like, has there ever been an owner that believed his own bullshit other than George, you know, like more than George Steinbrenner? Like the dude literally was suspended for like 2 years for colluding against Dave Winfield, who arguably like he's a Hall of Famer, and you didn't want to pay him. You know, like he chased Reggie Jackson out of town. You know, like the guy who was like, I would have taken less money every year just to keep playing in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
And he chased Reggie out of town. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And the only person to me that really seemed to deal with him well was Mattingly, of all people. Right? Like the hippie who wanted to wear a mustache and have long hair. And those
because Mattingly is one of his guys from the farm system, right?
Yeah, you know, but like Jeter, even like in some of the interviews that he's done was like, yeah, George Steinbrenner was a pain in my ass. You know, but
George Steinbrenner, without him, you don't get Suge Knight.
Yeah.
You don't get Donald Trump. George Steinbrenner showed these guys how the owner can be the star of the show.
Yeah, and what hurts most is, you know where George Steinbrenner is from? Cleveland, Ohio.
Is he from Cleveland? He's not a New Yorker?
No, he tried to buy the Indians first, and the owner at the time told him to fuck off, and then he looked for the first professional baseball team that was available for sale, and that was the Yankees.
Jesus.
Those championships that he won should have been mine in Cleveland.
Greg Swindell, man.
Oh my God,
starter,
dude! Swindell with Doug Jones as the closer, and then you had Joe Carter, Oddibe McDowell, Corey Snyder playing DH, and
who's your catcher? Base. You had a great catcher.
Oh my gosh, give me a second. I can see his face.
There was a great catcher on that Cleveland team.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you gotta think in '93, Sports Illustrated put Cleveland on the cover with Bobby Ojeda and one other pitcher. I can't remember his name, but they both ended up dying in a boating accident during spring training.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, and it sent the wheels off that whole season, and we ended up being one of the worst teams in the league. And then you have Jacobs Field opening the next year. So, like, essentially, all the established stars are gone. You know, there's just the baby Cleveland team, because I don't like using the old name. And then what happens? 94, they come out of the gate, probably would have won the World Series before the strike hit. So it probably would have came down to Cleveland and Montreal, honestly, ALNL, right? 95 hits. Yeah, the short strike, you know, the strike shortened season, and they were on fire, lose the World Series to the Braves, which really pissed me off. But I was like, you know what? The Braves get one after being there for like 29 years straight, and now I can stop hearing about how they came up short, right?
Oh, was it Sandy Alomar, right?
Sandy Alomar, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean Moon.
Yes,
thank you, Sean Moon. If you remember that off the top of your head, Sean Moon, you're probably our age, and you are a good person.
Yes.
May your God bless you with winning lottery tickets and internet service that doesn't suck.
Yeah, and low utility bills. Definitely low utility bills. Yes, definitely that.
May your God bless you with infinite gas mileage.
Yeah.
These are the blessings for 2022.
Yes.
But let's pivot
Yes.
to what you wanted to talk about, because I do want to try to cover this in a timely fashion, because the reason why I want to get you out here is the weather it's amazing here.
Oh, I'm glad because it's
like
93 degrees.
I'm trying to get you out here so we can do the draft and you can be here and still go see Cleveland, because look, Cleveland will still be Cleveland.
Cleveland's a great town now, man.
Sure.
See, the thing is, you toured and saw the worst that Cleveland had to offer.
Mm-hmm.
It's grown up a little bit. It's grown
I
up
saw
a little
the
bit.
worst that the entire state of Ohio had to offer.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's kind of let's call it what it is. It's a fucking political backwater now. People would say it's because it's gerrymandered. No, there's a reason that even in these gerrymandered districts, people still keep putting people like Jim Jordan into office.
Oh.
There's a reason that Tim Ryan, who's been a literal congressman for Northeast Ohio for 20-something years, is behind in the Senate race to JD Vance. Right?
Dude,
like
the Rust Belt. One thing I'll say about the Rust Belt, the entire Rust Belt, as we move forward, they will book heavy music regardless of what you look like, what you say. They don't give a damn. The Rust Belt, if they want it loud, they want it heavy, they don't care. Yeah. They don't care.
And as long as there's drinking involved, you know, they're happy.
They give their rat's ass.
Politics are just awful. Like Ohio, I wanted to move back to Cleveland so bad, dude. And Ohio's completely off the list of me ever moving back to, with everything that's happening politically there now. Like, I have a feeling they're gonna just start locking, lefties up. It's happening, man. It's gonna happen there. When it happens, it's gonna be Ohio or Texas, and they're gonna be battling to see who's more awful as far as conservatives go. Like, it's really bad, man.
It is. It's not comfortable in the Rust Belt. It's extremely uncomfortable in the Rust Belt. But if you're booking a tour and you're a little shitty band that no one knows, and once you hit, I'm talking the entire, I'm talking northern fucking Michigan.
Wait,
Wisconsin.
I mean, dude,
Ohio.
I've heard some black friends of mine that were like, you never go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan if you're black. You just don't do that.
They'll book you. Look, like I said, they'll book you.
Fair.
You can get out of there. All right. Thank you, guys. You're leaving, right? Yes. Okay. Thank you for playing. We appreciate the mosh pit. Move along.
Now get the fuck out.
Yeah, now get the fuck out. So West Philly was one of the most fun shows we played. We played with the band it's getting pretty big right now, called Soul Glow. And that was one of those nights where you're like, we blew everybody off the stage. Philly is awesome. I love Philly. It's like a big ass Oakland. But we are going to talk about the Pac-12 and the controversy that is USC and UCLA leaving. We spoke a little bit about this, but you found out some, I don't want to say dirt, but a story has surfaced about the UCLA president.
Yeah.
USC president. Sorry, USC president.
Yeah, the overall university president of University of Southern California, who is Carol Folt, who I know because she used to be the president at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Oh.
But about a year before, she essentially gives a thumbs up to have USC join UCLA and leaving the Pac-12, heading to to the Big Ten. She stopped Pac-12 expansion. She literally said she wouldn't vote for it. And with, if anybody doesn't know, like, the Pac-12 has a very weird revenue model where, the SEC does a every school gets the same cut from their TV deal and any other kind of marketing, right? Well, the Pac-12 doesn't do that because when you get down to it, UCLA, USC, those are the straws that stir the drink. So they get more money than say Arizona State, even Oregon. And the president of the university has a lot of pulls. So she literally stopped expansion because the commissioner at the time, Larry Scott, was trying to essentially make up for all the bad shit he did, and bring some other teams in, and allegedly, because Jason and I don't make enough off this to pay the attorneys, allegedly, it was going to be Boise State, San Diego State, that would move over and join the Pac-12 to give them a 16-team league. But
I don't mind. I think that's actually,
dude.
Would you say addition by subtraction? That's Boise State is a solid program.
Yes.
San Diego State is one of those mid-tier programs that sometimes you're surprised at the. I mean, Marshall Faulk comes out of San Diego State.
Dude, I mean, Jason, the last 3 years, San Diego State's won 10 or more games, and in the last 7, they've won 9 or more. San Diego State just did a $60 million addition to their athletic facilities. Like, they are dumping money into the program in a way that they never did with Marshall Faulk, right?
Mm-hmm.
JPub, Fresno State was talked about, but I think they're just still seen as too kind of up and down. But Boise and San Diego State have been steady, in their, they win 9-10 games a year. They win their bowl games, and they win the conference, right? So, that's why you bring them in. And honestly, geographically, it makes sense. San Diego State's just down the, you know what I mean? It's down the road. This could be kind of like the Utah thing, right? Where you pulled them out of the Mountain West. And what do they end up doing? They were literally the best program in the Pac-12 last year.
But do you think that threw a monkey wrench in the program and I want to ask this question to everybody watching. Does it throw a monkey wrench into your program because we're so focused on wins and losses? And the way the Pac-10 structures their schedule, you only have, I think, 2 out of conference games, and then the rest is all in conference. And I felt like the addition of Utah and Colorado, and Colorado's been on the down slope for the last 20 plus years.
Oh yeah, that Colorado's a trash program. I don't understand. Like, I don't know if anybody knows the distance between Denver and Boulder, please let me know. But like, the only reason Colorado gets in is because of its potential proximity to Denver. Like, they don't win shit. Mel Tucker took 1 good year at Colorado and spun that into Michigan State, where he's now making $92 million over 10 years.
Jesus.
So yeah.
Jesus. I was hoping that Colorado in the Pac-12 would give them better recruiting, because remember, that's the Colorado at one point in time was one of the funnest programs to watch in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I mean, they won they split a national title in the early 90s.
Up to the mid 90s, you had, that's where Cordell Stewart comes from, and Eric Bieniemy was on those teams.
What was that other running back? Was it Rashawn Salam?
Rashawn Salam is a Colorado guy.
Yeah,
that's after though, right?
Well, that was mid 90s. That was mid 90s.
Yeah, he won the Heisman, I think, in 95, 96.
Yeah, and then he was taken by the Bears and completely fell apart.
Just didn't pan out. But again, I think the game has changed a lot since that happened. But that didn't pan. Colorado didn't pan out the way I thought it was going to pan out. But Utah in the Pac-12 South, or whatever they call it, just was such a hard opponent. And they really beat up on the schools that you thought were going to be the power schools, like the USCs and even the Stanfords.
Yeah.
And because of that, I felt like it was real hard for the conference to really ascend, because they just beat the crap out of each other. The way people talk about the SEC, I've never really agreed, because I've always felt like the quarterback play in the SEC has been mediocre at best up until recently, because they can stockpile so much talent.
Mm-hmm.
15 years ago, 10 years ago, I mean, let's remember the SEC for the last 20 so years, just like 25 years or so, has been the premier conference, and a lot of that is game scheduling. and when people get to see those games, so you get better recruits, yada yada yada. I watched Florida when Kerwin Bell was their quarterback and Emmitt Smith was on that team. You know what I mean?
And also like, people don't realize about the SEC, and I'm gonna catch shit for this, and I don't really care. But the SEC is top heavy, and it has been for about 10 years.
But
right?
most of those conferences are top heavy. But that's my point. It's like
I agree with you, but I think it's even more distinct in the SEC, right? Because you have like anywhere from like 2 to 4 just dominant programs that will beat each other up on the schedule, right? But then you got like a 7-6 Tennessee, a 6-6 Florida. Vandy is always there. That is that's when you literally bring out, like, you're going down the depth chart, and you're like, hey man, have you played at all this season? And he's like, no, coach, I haven't. I'm just surprised you saw me. He's like, hey, not a problem. You're playing today. We got Vandy on the schedule, right? Like, that's how it is, so like, and you're right. Every conference is top heavy. Like your top teams are dominant, and they're there every single time. And that's why I always kind of laugh at Michigan fans right now, because they're like, well, we beat you, we beat the Buckeyes last year, and look at what we did. We got to the playoff. I'm like, you did it one time. And the first time fucking forever, man.
Ever.
Right? So like, you're not a top dominant team. Like, when Harbaugh starts putting these together year in, year out, okay. Yeah, and Dr. Claw, I was happy to see Georgia finally win, so I can just get every Georgia fan to shut up about 83 or whenever they won that fucking title.
I mean, Georgia was another team for a long time that was like,
Yeah.
We could blame the Mark Richt years for that, but there was, as much as, the early to mid 2000s talk about the SEC was the defense comes out of the SEC is defense. They just beat each other up. I'm like, these guys are playing against horrible ass quarterbacks.
Yeah, absolutely.
They weren't putting out a lot of offensive talent again until recently, with the success of LSU and then the success of Alabama. And being able to stockpile talent like that, we saw it with Miami in the 80s through the 2000s. We saw it with USC in the Pete Carroll years, just stockpiling talent to the point where you're third and fourth stringers. If you look at these teams I'm talking about, Jim Kelly was on the same team with Bernie Kosar and Vinny Testaverde.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They all essentially knew they were only get 1 year.
You could sit. Bernie Kosar ain't from Florida. Jim Kelly ain't from Florida. Testaverde ain't from Florida. But they were able to get that level of talent. And then you go look at, USC. They were able to get guys from the state, actually from the region, because there's so much talent that comes out of Southern California. But, I mean, when you look at how stacked some of those teams were, we have Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart. I don't know if Mark Sanchez was on that team as well. But, I mean, that's
I think he was. Sorry about that, dude. I hit my mic, and it said it came unplugged, and I'm like, you fucking son of a bitch. I paid a lot of money for you. You better work. But I heard you. No, but yeah, like, I mean, you're absolutely right. Those really transcendent coaches figure out how to stockpile, and they taught kids who could start everywhere. Like, hey, I know you want to play, but here's the deal. You sit 2 years here at Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be guaranteed to start a year. You're going to win multiple national titles. And then you're going to play in a professional system, pro system that's going to get you ready to go to the next level. And it's just kind of like, how does a kid say no to that when, before this year, you had one crack, essentially, because, American players still refuse to go to Canada to play. But like, it's amazing what some of those teams did, like, especially those very transcendent teams, like, the big run of Miami and, Pete Carroll's Trojans, I mean, it's
even Stoops' Oklahoma team. Those teams were pretty stacked. Mac Davis, Texas coach? Mac Brown. Mac Brown's
Brown.
Texas teams were pretty stacked. I mean, you get Vince Young and Colt McCoy, and say what you will about Colt McCoy, he's carved out a very nice NFL career, and he had a really nice college career.
Dude, fuck yes, I would take Colt McCoy's career right now.
He's had a very nice pro career. So when I think of like stockpiling talent, you guys, when Coach Will was on here and when Waz was on here, had brought something up. And when you made this topic, the first thing I said when I was looking at the show notes, I was like, no, there's no saving the Pac-12. And I think you guys are right. We're going to see at best a 2-league system. And that's just what it's going to be, because this is the new college sports, unless the NIL changes everything and makes regional talent stay. We haven't seen that yet. We'll find out. I just think, sadly, that this is what we're going to see: 2 divisions, and they're probably going to change their names at some point.
Yeah.
U.S. Atlantic, U.S. Pacific, and it'll be, the Mississippi will be the dividing line.
Yeah. And we'll make this the last thing before we get on to the big topic. But like, if you're getting ready to hire a new president in the NCAA, right? Hire the guy that's going to do something fucking nuts, and by fucking nuts, institute relegation. Have your top 2 conferences, the SEC, the Big Ten, right? And then you have everybody else. And you drop the bottom 4 teams from the top 2 conferences and the fucking best 4 from the group of whatever, the guys that are left, they go up. Just do that. I mean, it adds a level of excitement to European soccer, especially at the end of the year when you're literally counting points in the fixtures to see, holy shit, man, I think we're going to be able to jump up to Premier League, or I think we're going to do this, right? Dude, that would give players incentive, because like whether we want to admit it or not, and I hope we don't have any like bowl fans or bowl game stands in chat, because the bowl system's bullshit. At this point, you need to fucking knock out about 20 of these fucking games, right? Expand the playoff to 12 teams and just have the bowl games cover the playoff games. Like, I think it's really cool that, athletes will get to hang out, in these other stadiums. But let's face it, if you're playing in the whogivesashit.com bowl live from Mobile, Alabama, in front of 5,000 people, is that really that big of an experience?
What's made. Look, this is my take on the bowl system, and I know we want to move on. I enjoy bowls because I enjoy upsets, and college football is like one weekly upset watch for me. And it is fun to see different conferences that don't get to play each other, battle it out. But sadly, I think so many people have poo-pooed bowls for so long because they're like, I want the big thing. It's like, so what? So what? It's, for me, it's like watching, this is going to sound maybe belittling, but like different divisions, high school champions. Like, we're the Division 6 champion of this. Like, I don't mind that kind of stuff. Winning a game that could be deemed that large is cool. But because so many people look at it as the booby prize, especially if you're a decent team, they don't show up.
Yeah.
Especially now with like, I'm not going to get hurt in the whoevergivesafuck.com bowl and risk draft status.
But see, you could replace all that with the relegation thing, right? Like, your whole point is to win fucking games, get in the top 4. Maybe you have like a mini playoff to set your top 4 that would move up next season, something like that, but like, if you're going to be in a conference, like we'll say like the AAC or Conference USA or the Sun Belt, you are Cincinnati was the exception, not the rule, right? The Power 5 controlled the playoff. And the fact of the matter is, do you really think they're going to let that shit happen again? I don't.
But that was, look, I think that was what was fun back in, was it 04, 05, or was it even 03? I don't remember the year that Boise State beat Oklahoma.
Yeah, in the Fiesta Bowl. Yeah.
That was fun to watch. And I love those matchups. I think everyone that watches college football, you cross your fingers and kind of hope for one of those Fresno, Boise's, Hawaii, Georgia. You want to see one of these schools that's not from a Power 5 conference face a Power 5 conference. Sometimes the matchups aren't good matchups. Hawaii didn't match
Yeah.
up well against Georgia. They would have
No.
matched up excellent against Oklahoma.
Yeah. I mean, I get that, dude. I watch every bowl game still, and I bitch the entire time, right? I just genuinely love football,
Yeah.
and I appreciate the athletes for the work they put in and what they're trying to do, right? And honestly, the enjoyment I get out of just watching them fucking play. Like, dude, I think it's rad that Central Michigan and Western Washington played a 65-60 game in the Bahamas. 4 of us saw it, and 3 of us were watching on TV.
Dude, I also love those games for me because I'm always hopeful. I'm watching the games like, oh, who's this young quarterback slinging it around? Who is this wide receiver that can actually run some good routes and has good vision?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I just enjoy the game, and like I'm going to complain about the bowl system because of how ESPN has monopoly on it for the most part, of how they, shoehorn conferences into these like fake kind of like rivalries. So it's just they're trying to make content to sell, right? And I get that. I
Yes.
understand that because I'm an adult and I know how stupid our capitalist society is,
Yes.
right? But there's more than way, more than one way to make it exciting and get people to buy in. I think relegation, especially as things change and as we see more stratification of the game into just two kind of like bipolar kind of existence where you have like the Big Ten and the SEC and then there's everybody else. Do relegation, right? I guarantee you, like Ohio State and Florida and Georgia and Bama, or whoever is in these fucking conferences at this point, isn't going to throw a real fit, when they can say, you know what, guys, we can get fucking rid of Indiana right now. Right? Do you really think the SEC commissioner, right? And like with the Big Ten, all their members organizations, with the exception of one, is a member of the AAU, which is the top 65 research universities in the country.
Mm-hmm.
The SEC only has like 2 of them, right? So they're not what you would call an academically driven conference. And do you really think that the conference commissioner is going to be like, hey guys, we can finally get these fucking Vandy nerds out of here? Anchors up, bitch. Get a move on. You're going to the WAC. I don't think they're going to throw a fit about that. They could be like, you know what? Hey guys, we got these 4 teams coming up. Hey, Coastal, App State, two like Sunbelt programs that are on the upswing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, we can put them, in the same, kind of conference or however they're scheduling games at that point, like in the SEC, right? And then you look at, we'll say like Boise, the Big Ten's already got a Western footprint. Okay, well, they're going to come on over, or, whoever it is. But like you can get rid of a lot of the dead weight as far as conference goes. And honestly, having a turnover where you have the bottom 4 dropping every year, and the top 4 coming up every year. That's exciting right there. Can you imagine being fucking, again, let's just talk about like what we were talking about off air. Can you imagine Jackson State with Dion as the head?
Yeah.
Right? In the top 4 getting ready to get promoted. And all he's doing that entire time is like, hey, y'all, like just talking shit to everybody, because he knows he's going to play the big boys next year. Right?
I think we're in for an interesting college football with realignment. And realignment and NIL, I think, are going to make for interesting college sports in general. But sadly, I do see the that whole model that you guys are talking about, with European model of just 2 leagues.
Yeah.
That just seems like the way everything is going, because monopoly is just the way of the world, right? And I don't say this with any sort of joy. This is Doomer Jason saying monopoly is the way of the world.
Yes, and we try and keep Doomer, Jason, and Mac to a minimum here, but I agree with you. Like it is sad, because we're gonna like all those. I'm not a big fan of tradition in anything but college football, right? Like the Rose Bowl as we know it, it's dead. It's fucking dead.
Yeah.
Like I would not be surprised if George Kliavkoff, who's the new commissioner of the Pac-12, literally looks at the Big Ten at the end of the year and is like, fuck it. We're not bringing the Big Ten in. We're going to go with, and just, I hope he gets petty as fuck. Like he's just like, you know what? Hey, Conference USA champ.
Rose Bowl died when Texas beat USC.
Well, yeah, I could see that. But like, you know, college football was the big thing. It's all about tradition and the pageantry and all this shit, right? But they keep marketing it like a business now, whether we want to admit it or not. It's marketed like a business. And if that's the case, then it needs to be consumed and presented, in all its context as a business, right? Like, fuck your tradition, fuck all that stuff. Show us what it really is. And that's why
you're not going to show you how the sausage is made. This is
I'm not talking that, but like look at the EPL, English Premier League, right? Like, that this is, but it's a fucking business, and everybody knows it. Look at all the owners of the clubs. Just present it that way. Consumers are not stupid. Well, some are, for the most part.
I don't think it's stupidity. I never think it's stupidity. I think A, it's how it's sold to you, and I think B, it's how the emotional attachment to the conversation goes. I mean, as we move on to the next subject, I think this actually has a lot to with the next subject. You would talk about Watson. You would talk about.
Dude, let's just talk about Watson, because a couple of people have already asked if we were going to address it.
I think when you're presented, this is my whole thing with. I finally finished the Kayfabe script. I just have to record it. Thank God, another guy's actually going to put the video to it. He reached out. He's a filmmaker, so I'm actually pretty stoked about that. But it's the longest thing I've ever done, by the way. But it's not that when I say everything is kayfabe, that it's a plot where Donald Trump and Joe Biden get together and write out a script, or Democratic Party and Republican Party operatives write this out. This isn't a deep state plan. You have to have true believers for the spectacle to work, per Guy Debord in his great book. It's the way it's presented, and we get this emotional attachment to it, right? Like electoral politics is always presented in this way, that there's good guys and there's bad guys, and if you vote for the right guy, then you'll get the right outcome. And that's just never that's never how it's worked out, right? And also, if that's what you do, then the power lies in the people that you voted for, not in the people.
Yeah.
Because, if all I have to do is say that guy's a bad guy, I don't have to do anything to earn your vote. And so my problem with a lot of sports talk is the way things are presented.
Yeah. Well, when you put it that way, consider me swayed to this point of view, Jason. That's like really eloquent, and I liked it. I was just trying to it's hard for me because I have emotional attachments to my teams, right? But because I was in the military and I grew to hate it, and by hate it, I mean the violence, the othering of people, but also the fucking traditions, man. You just did so many dumb things because of tradition. I hate tradition in all forms at this point. I just hate it. It drags things out. It makes it boring. I really think if you lean into tradition too much, it shows that you, one, have a fundamental inability to roll with the punches, which fuck knows in this day and age you have to have just to make it. And two, for me, it's just unoriginal. Like, things change and adapt over time. And we're getting this huge change in adaptation in college football, especially, but what's going to be all college sports once kind of like the dust settles.
Yes.
And we find out where all the haves and the have-nots are, right? And so when I say let's do relegation, because it's different. It's non-traditional in American sport. We don't really have like, soccer's trying to do it with like MLS, and then you have the USL and a couple other soccer leagues, but there's no, you know, uh, promotion and relegation system in that, because it's just the way our sport is developed. But I'm like, dude, just fucking do it, because it's another way, a non-traditional way, to where, like you said, we could package this as something new and exciting that people could get behind. Especially, I mean, let's face it. Let's just go back real quick to our two shitty team examples, right? Indiana, who considers success a 7-6 season.
Fair.
And then you have Vanderbilt, who hasn't won 9 games since James Franklin was there, I think 10 years ago, right?
Jesus, I didn't know they won that many. Okay.
Yeah, Franklin capped out went 9-3 one year.
Wow.
At Vanderbilt, right? But every year, they have fans. I'm sure they do. I've seen games where I witnessed a man in an Indiana football jersey, and I've witnessed a woman in a Vanderbilt football jersey, right? Like,
yeah,
I know
kicking a field goal, listen, yeah,
right. Like, there's at least one of each. Like, one squad, both squads have at least one fan. I've witnessed it in public, right? But like, how do you feel knowing every year as a Vanderbilt fan, you are not going to win? Like, your team is just going to suck dick for beer money. It's going to be just awful. But if you do relegation where you drop out, it gives you time to develop a system. It gives you time to work out the kinks, so to speak, and then you get in the top 4 again, and then you're back with the big boys, right? Like, for me, it makes sense. I think it's a smart thing. It's just unfortunate that we don't lean into that kind of system, here in the United States. And honestly, it's because we have sports monopolies. That's exactly what it is. We have sports monopolies that
and and we're protecting the monopoly. We protect the idea of monopoly. It's never part of the conversation. So the other day, so we do this every other week. So about a week or so ago, I had to pick up a friend from the airport. I leave here at 3:30 a.m. It's Pacific time, so it's 6:30 Eastern time. So ESPN radio kicks on the sports affiliate. For whatever reason, this radio station's tower is in Tijuana, so I can get it all the way down to Ensenada. And I'm listening to the conversation they're having, and it's the show with like Keyshawn Johnson, and I think Max Kellerman was on it, and some other people, and they were talking about Kyler Murray's contract.
Isn't that a bad mix? Like, I think, one, I can't stand Max Kellerman.
He was annoying the shit out of me.
Yeah, if he's not talking boxing, I don't want him to talk about anything. And Keyshawn's the exact opposite. If he's talking anything but like football, I don't want to hear him either. Like, and I'm not trying to say that to be an asshole, but those are two things both of those guys know.
Someone says it's K. They say KJW. I don't know who that is. Maybe that's the white guy. There's definitely some white guys on the show as well.
Yeah.
Right. Can't let all these Negroes run the show. And so I listened to this show, and they're talking constantly about Kyler Murray's contract. And I've never wanted to call into a show more, because whoever was the white guy, he kept saying, yeah, we have to acknowledge the original sin of America, racism, the original sin. And I was like, well, you've never read To Ray Reid. The original sin means that it doesn't go away, if you really believe that. But anyway, it was okay. Jason Williams, Keyshawn Johnson, Jason Williams, and Max Kellerman. That's who I think it actually is.
Okay.
And so Keyshawn, Jay, Will, and Max. So I'm listening to these guys talk about Kyler Murray's contract, and I'm like, it must be a slow sports day. And I love the way, and by love, I'm saying this facetiously, that they infuse race into the conversation, as if Kyler Murray is some sort of idiot that has to have in his contract that he watched 4 hours of film. Kyler Murray's father was a black quarterback back when black quarterbacks didn't go to the NFL. I believe in my soul he probably put his wife on a special diet to make sure that Kyler Murray was going to come out and be the number 1 draft pick at 5'10". Kyler Murray comes from a middle class family. Let's just say they're probably a little bit more than that. He's known sports his entire life. He was a first round draft pick of the Oakland A's, and he was the first player chosen a few years back. How dare anyone have a conversation about race and the team is being racist and he's not watching film? You're going to tell me this kid that's had football sports drilled into him since he could walk has to watch film? We're not talking about Todd Marinovich in 1988. We're talking about Kyler Murray in 2019 that lives in a world where you are brand first.
Well, I mean, dude, Jason, it's like you already, like, I think it was with when Coach was on with us when we talked about like kind of like that middle class to upper middle class to upper class, like, you know, former, like, I guess collegiate or professional athletes whose kids are just kind of like pushed into the sport, and this is what they've done since they were like 4, right? Like Kyler Murray's that kid. He's that kid, and he knows, like, and like that kind of pissed me off. I'm like, dude, don't act like this kid's never watched film. Like,
how can you say that?
I mean, one, like you said, he was a first round baseball pick. What do you think you as a hitter do all fucking day? You watch goddamn film.
In this millennium, he's not a number 1 pick in Will Clark's era.
Yeah,
he's the number 1 pick in this new era of all I do is break down footage in my spare time.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, it's at his fingertips whenever he wants it. He could literally get on YouTube, right? And see whatever the fuck he wants. You know, he doesn't even need the film videographer to put shit together for him. He's like, no, Gene, I got it, dude. Like, I'm going to go home. I'm going to hop in my hot tub. I got my iPad. I'm good to go, bro. Yeah. And he just gets on YouTube and he's like, all right, Baltimore Ravens defense. Boop. Okay, what do we got? Like, don't act like he's not doing that already. You know, but you
know. So somebody called and said, because now the narrative is racism, right?
Yeah.
So, someone called and said, I didn't see Ben Roethlisberger having a no rape anybody clause in his contract. And my first reaction was, well, first of all, who puts that in a contract? Second of all, that's illegal.
Yeah,
he's never been convicted. I'm not saying I don't know what he's done, but let's just talk about conviction.
Yep.
He's never been convicted of anything. So if they start putting in this contract, we don't want you to go to these clubs. You can't do and you know what? You'll never know. Yeah, I don't know what's in Ben Roethlisberger's contract.
And honestly, the thing is, the NFL has a giant catch-all, which we will talk about with the next topic. You have the personal conduct policy that's standard boilerplate for every NFL contract, right? That the NFL has wide leeway in how they apply it.
Yeah.
So they don't have to put, you know, don't rape anybody as a clause, or you can't go to these clubs. But look at Plaxico Burress, right? Perfect. He was going to get suspended anyway because he went into a club with a gun immediately. That's going to say, for NFL head, you know, people in the NFL office, that violates personal conduct policy. So essentially, you're going to get suspended for going to a club with a gun, right?
Yep.
But then the dumb motherfucker shot himself in the leg and had to go do time. So that, like, just kind of kicked it up to the next level, you know. But like, they use that clause for a lot of things, and it covers a lot of ground. Depending on what Goodell and the leadership at the NFL office want to do, you know. So like, when I hear shit like that, and it's very disingenuous. It's a lazy argument, or it's a lazy point of view, right? But like, that pissed me off too, man. I'm like, Kyler Murray is a fucking professional football player who was drafted in the first round of not one but 2 leagues, whose father, like you had already mentioned, was a quarterback himself. And if you think he wasn't putting his kid through the motion, Like when he was old enough to like read Dr. Seuss, he's like, yes, Kyler, hop on pop. But what is an out route? Like, don't act like I wasn't doing that. Right? Like
it's insulting. As a black man, I felt the conversation itself was racist because we're assuming that they're saying this because he's too stupid to understand.
Yeah.
And to bring back racist tropes of decades past and then say, well, we're not really bringing these back. We're just saying what the team was saying. It's a slow news day. You guys found something hot to jump on. This is to me the equivalent of Colin Kaepernick sitting down when he was injured during a preseason game.
I mean, Jason, don't you think it really goes into what we've talked about a couple times, like sports talk radio, and I don't give a fuck what color you are in it. They have a tendency to other the athlete. Like this is somebody else. This is an object I get to talk about at work because I'm on sports talk radio. And they don't look at how that person is a person. Right. And then, you have dickheads like Jim Rome, like we talked about, like fucking sports talk radio typically is pretty conservative and it's pretty white. Is the demographic changing as far as host goes? A little bit. But I warn you, Dan Dakish is still going to always have a fucking radio show. And he's one of the most disgusting people on sports talk radio. Right. So, like, they've just done this big thing of othering the athlete. Yes. And I think that's the worst thing they could have done, because then you get listeners who start doing the same fucking thing. Yes. And those listeners, what they end up doing is playing fantasy football, and they send death threats and how they're a piece of shit. When, I don't know, they blow out their MCL after running for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns in a game, but they're lost for the rest of the season. Like this is that type of behavior from the hosts begets that kind of behavior in the fan. And that's the shitty cycle we're in.
And this show can't break that because we don't have 40,000 watts. They say it in Spanish at the station, but watts, of power stretching from coast to coast. We are on the internet, and I hope this kind of message spreads, because it makes me sad that we have to have these race reductionist conversations about situation. And I'm not saying the league doesn't have race issues, but even when we start talking about like coaches of color, and we did a show about this a while back, there's a lot of coaches in college of color that just don't want to go to the NFL. They have really comfortable positions. The pay is really good where they are. Why would I want to leave that to be a token for a year or two? That doesn't sound like fun to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Jackie Robinson this already, because we've already had a Super Bowl with 2 black head coaches in it. So my Jackie Robinson moment is gone. Yeah. Mike Tomlin. Pittsburgh ain't the most racially sensitive town, and Mike Tomlin could punch a baby and be okay.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the kind of thing winning begets. But hey, speaking about winning begetting favor, let's talk about a team who doesn't win much and is taking it on the chin for a bad PR move, potentially, allegedly, whatever you want to call it, and that we finally, after all these months, get the final say on what's happening to Deshaun Watson.
So he got suspended for 6 games.
6 games.
6 games. Not because he got convicted of a crime.
Oh, no.
And he settled out of court, I think, with everyone.
Every case except one is.
And I will say this, and I can't speak for Deshaun Watson. I'll speak for just myself. I have settled out of court. If you sue me and I have the money, I'm going to give it to you. One of the most expensive lessons I had to learn was when I had an incident with an employee when I had a business, and he came at me physically, and I grabbed him, and I shook him, and his head hit a wall.
Jason, why you gotta be abusive, man?
It was
Why you gotta be
bad.
abusive?
And you know the worst part. You know the worst part. He was white too. It was bad, and we laughed. But anyway, we're cool now.
Well, that's good.
And
So
but
there probably was an attorney out there that would have been like, that angry black man struck my nice, upstanding white client.
This dude sent me. He was like, "You're gonna lose everything. I'm gonna sue you. You're gonna lose everything." And so I got mad, and I spoke to some elder business owners, and they sat me down and looked me in the eye. And I'm 26, 27, Mac. 26, 27, I'm making well into six figures. So
what's that like?
It's like you think no one can tell you shit. No one can tell me shit at this point. I had hired, this guy was a friend of mine. I'm not going to say who it is. Actually, I wouldn't say famous, but he's somewhat well known now. And Coach Will might even have been there when this happened. Coach Will used to work for me. With me. I was so furious that this dude had the audacity to say this shit to me and do this to me. He came at me so sideways. These wiser old people sat me down and said, "Check this out, angry young buck. We fired someone many years ago, and as they walked out of the door after we fired them, they fell." I'm using finger quotations for the audio only, and bumped their head. And then they sued us. It cost us $250,000 to settle for $25,000. Give him whatever he wants.
Wow.
I had to sleep on that, Mac, for 24 hours because I was still mad. Right? I was like, no, fuck that guy. I'm right, all right. I think all he ended up winning was like $3,000, and I had it at the time. It was like nothing at the time. But your lawyers will tell you, unless it's just a nothing burger case that's going to get thrown out, just give them the money.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Doomsday brought up something that I'm gonna disagree with your Doomsday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Texas is racist as fuck. I think we are all well aware of that. But you know what Deshaun Watson did in Texas for quite a few years? He played great football. And that is more important than God in Texas. So when you say he beat 2 grand juries and it's because nothing happened, I don't buy that. Because you've seen grand juries, especially in cases of professional athletes, give them a pass because of who they are. I mean, a backup lineman for the Seattle Seahawks put his wife into a hospital and beat a grand jury charge. Like the grand jury didn't decide to press charges against him when it was either his fiance or his wife was literally pummeled and from scalp to toes was just bruised, and she was like 5'2", like 100 pounds.
I don't know how anybody beats a grand jury, because if you know how grand juries work, they're not designed for you to win.
Yeah. So like I'm not, and the thing is like in all this, we can't miss that the Texans organization allegedly, again, Jason, I don't make enough from this, to get sued, allegedly facilitated this behavior, but they like had multiple masseuses on speed dial. And when he allegedly would do what he did, and that woman wouldn't come back, they would have another woman like literally on standby. Right. Honestly, if I'm the Texans, what I'm doing is I'm just sending dudes there. Right. I'm just like, hey man, yeah, it's gonna be a dude. His name's Olaf. He's from Oslo. He's really good at Swedish massage, and he uses the hot rocks, so they're really nice. But I mean, let's get fucking down to like the grossest shit I saw on Twitter today about this whole thing, because they came down at about 9 o'clock this morning. I got up at like 6. I went for my trot. I took my shower. I made my tea. I lit a joint, and then I sat there and waited because last night, leaked it's going to hit around 9 o'clock, right? So I sat there and I'm just sitting there smoking. I got my tea up. I'm outside in my backyard and I've got my phone notifications on. And I'm waiting and I hear bing, 6 games, right? And then you immediately see all the idiots come out on Twitter with just some gross shit.
Like what?
When somebody said they brought up Calvin Ridley, who the young Falcons receiver who bet $1,500 on himself, he's suspended for a year, right? Like all 17 games. Watson's looking at 6. And yes, he only allegedly did these things. I'm aware. But like I was saying before, he violated the personal conduct policy, of this contract. Goodell's used this to great extent. And yes, players have appealed and have had their suspensions cut down. But he's used this with a very wide brush. And granted, he's not the one that passed down sentence. It was actually a former federal judge named Sue L. Robinson who, according to the new collective bargaining agreement, had to look at this case. It couldn't be Goodell, right? But still, Goodell has an influence in this decision. And you had assholes saying, literally, like when people would bring up Calvin Ridley, well, that is something in his contract. All he did was violate the personal conduct policy contract, and we've seen with Roethlisberger, precedent says it's only 4. So when somebody brought up, so you're saying gambling is worse than alleged sexual assault, this guy's like, well, it's not covered in those contracts, so who cares? Like, you can't get mad at this decision. And I'm like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Like, whether you feel about however you feel about the situation or not, over 30 women came forward, right? Over 30 women came forward. And even if only half of them were true, and I'm not saying that's the case, but if only half of them are true, that's, 15 or more women that are forever affected by this. Maybe they went to school for, sport, what is it, kinesiology, where, you do stuff like that. Like, this person might have lost their entire, vocation because this allegedly pulled his, and did what he did, right? I don't want to.
But let me ask you this question, and this is the kind of the grand question that we need to start asking ourselves for society. If one is not convicted of a crime, regardless of how you feel, do you still punish that person? And I think that's the grander question that never really gets asked, because no one likes asking that question, because it's not one that's very debatable.
Yeah.
Because either you did or you didn't, right? Either you get convicted of the crime or you don't. But because of this conduct policy that you're talking about, it enables the league, and this is never part of the conversation that I've heard even peripherally about this. It enables the league to do swift internal PR, so it doesn't really matter about the court of public opinion. When we think about gambling in sports, Pete Rose will forever serve the ultimate sentence for gambling. I don't really care if he gambled on himself or not. He's never going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he will forever be known as the greatest player to never be. Maybe Barry Bonds or one of those guys will be a close second. But if one is not convicted in the court of law, and let's remember, athletes have gone to prison. Mike Tyson, you're in North Carolina, dude that had his wife, ordered the murder of his wife, Ray Caruth, prison. Who else has lost a big case that had money? Rich people, the Weinsteins and Cosby, prison. Money didn't buy them freedom.
Well, do you think that had to do with more with the fact that, and I'm just like I'm trying to formulate the actual. I don't want to say rub, but just the line of thinking I'm here. Do you think Weinstein and Cosby had more to do with the fact that they were considered like trusted names in their fields? Like kind of clean and family friendly type shit.
Mhm.
And I think honestly, what did them in again? Like Weinstein had over 70 credible instances, not just of sexual assault, but of actual rape. And Cosby allegedly again.
Mhm. No,
Um,
it's not alleged. It's not alleged anymore.
well,
Like
yeah, I mean,
he's sitting in a. Both of these guys are sitting in a cell. It's no longer alleged. We don't have to, relitigate these cases and
yeah.
ask about the quid pro quo nature of entertainment that literally does exist.
But I mean, do you think that had a lot to do with Weinstein and Cosby because they were always out front of their industries? They were considered like kind of pillars of, and their behavior was kept quiet for so long. You know what
To
I mean?
you.
Like, oh yes, to the layperson, not involved in the entertainment industry.
But everyone in the industry knew about this stuff. I've been hearing about Cosby and Quincy Jones for decades.
Not Rashid,
Peripherally, 'cause I'm not in Hollywood, but even in the music side, you would hear about it.
not
I
Rashid.
think I think the bigger issue is there's a paradigm shift due to Me Too, and
Yeah.
that caused a lot of people to act swiftly on the PR front. Because remember, Cosby had been talked about infidelity since the 90s, since the early 90s, when the show was on the air, and no one really discussed it. And you could say money squashed it, but I think it just wasn't it wasn't part of the era. Again, like we talked before about the term rape culture. It's like, okay, you think there's a rape culture because of Porky's? There's an entire freaking series that everyone loves called Mad Men. That's literally about shitty guys in the 50s. We never
Yeah.
talk about rape culture. Gone with the Wind. We never talk about
Oh
rape
yeah.
culture. We only talk about it in this kind of new context because it
Well,
comes out of the end.
look at the modern, like the most recent one, right? Like the Game of Thrones prequel,
Oh,
right? It has live, it has fucking dragons in it, Jason, and the production crew came out and said, well, it was a visceral, violent time, and rape was part of what happened, so there
mhm.
will be rape scenes. And I'm like, can't you just allude to that off camera? Why do you have to
It's
film
so
it?
easy to. It's so easy to.
Yeah, and they said something about historical accuracy. And again, Jason, there's fucking dragons in it. Last I checked, I did not ride a dragon into war, and I went there quite a few times, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no fucking dragons here. I have a bachelor's degree in history, and I read about history all the fucking time. You know what I haven't come across in all the books I've read, Jason? The King of England hopping on his dragon and flying to Ireland to burn it with fire. I haven't come across that passage yet,
It,
right?
you
I
know,
haven't heard about the King of France hopping on his dragon and fucking crossing the channel and burning out England in the ground. Like, I haven't read that yet because you know what? It doesn't fucking exist. You can't use history. And when you refer to Game of fucking Thrones, eat my asshole, producers. Like you said, just fucking go off camera and be like, she was horribly treated and raped. That forwarding the plot right there without having to put this on film, right?
Mhm.
Because it's just fucking gross, man. Like, I was a big fan of the girl with the dragon tattoo.
The
A rape
original.
scene, the original and even the new one, because I really
Yeah,
enjoyed
I
the
love.
book series,
Yes, yes.
right? But that rape scene was a huge part of it, and I couldn't watch it.
It's the girl with the dragon tattoo, which I'm a fan of. I'm a huge fan of. But yes, but what is the original title of that movie? Do you know
No, I don't actually.
the original title? The Men Who Hate Women.
That makes sense because that literally the entire first three books, the good ones,
It's
were
all
about
about.
men. Yeah.
It's about men who hate women, and that title maybe is a little too on the nose. But when we talk about like that culture, we kind of don't really look at power like that. right? We want to look at it more in the Deshaun Watson waving your dick around, or even like Woodstock 99, grabbing boobs. Which, all those things are horrible. Let's just admit these are horrible things.
Yeah,
these are
man,
horrible things.
Keep your fucking hands to yourself now. You know better.
These are all things that, and of all the things that I've been to with scantily clad women, I'm not saying it doesn't happen when I'm there. I've never seen it happen. I think there's a huge paradigm shift on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable nowadays. Like I was telling you off camera, I'm writing this piece on my review on the Woodstock 99 documentary, and I didn't like it, but only 4 reported sexual assaults. And there's estimates of many, many more, but no one really knows. But only 4 were reported. Had that happen, and I don't even think it can happen now. But had that happen now, you'll have more cases reported, no problem.
Yeah.
More people are going to come forward because more people feel comfortable to come forward, like they feel like they're going to be heard. So if Deshaun Watson is a bad dude or not, we have to start asking ourselves the question: if they're not convicted in the court, then do we still punish them in our court of public opinion? And if that's the case, then that's a scary world to live in. And then all these people that go cancel culture ain't real. It's like, well, it's very real then.
Yeah, I mean, I see that 100%. I know, like, my mother was, beaten and raped when I was a kid. So when I see things like this, I have a visceral reaction to it, right? And I understand that people's lived experiences dictate a lot of how they react to things. So for me, when I see things like this, I immediately think where there's smoke, there's fire. Maybe not all of them are true, but at some point, this dude allegedly was pulling out his dick and like rubbing it on people whose jobs it is to help loosen up their muscles so they can be a better athlete, right? So like, that's how I react to it. But you're absolutely right. I can't even discount that. Like, when does, I guess, the public gauntlet that he's going to have to run through end?
So Michael Vick is a great example. Michael Vick and the dog fighting is a perfect example of you will always be guilty. And people try to use that as a race thing too. When I was in the Gulf of Mexico when he got convicted, and I was on a rig with a lot of white guys. and I remember when the verdict came down, the scuttlebutt was first of all, they were extremely upset by it. They were like, we fight dogs. They're like, we fight gamecocks. One man looked at me, this white man looked at me, and he goes, and I don't agree with this. I'm just repeating what someone said. He goes, we fight gamecocks where I live. And he said, do you know the prestige and honor that the gamecock has when he's a champion fighter? I don't know how a chicken could have or a hen can have honor and prestige, but that's the way that person viewed it, and they didn't see anything wrong with they just didn't care.
Well, dude, look at it's the name of the it's the mascot of one of the flagship state universities of South Carolina.
Yes.
Again, Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers, for years, for decades, it was part of the University of South Carolina system. And when they struck out on their own, they didn't want to veer from the Gamecock aesthetic, so they picked the Chanticleer, which is just an English term. Well, actually, like French Norman, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Term for a fighting rooster.
And
so like
people fought, and they were like, and all these white guys, old white guys that I feel very comfortable throwing the N-word around a few times in their lives, thought it was so unjust that cornrow wearing, pants sagging at the time, Michael Vick was thrown under the bus for something that they felt was, and these aren't Falcons fans. We're like, what did he do?
Yeah.
And Michael Vick, who went to jail he did go to jail for fighting dogs, but the big crime was the transfer of money across state lines.
Yeah, it
That's
was
where he served the majority of his time. So
yeah.
he serves his sentence. He is rehabilitated. He still works with organizations to rehabilitate dogs that have been fighting dogs. I believe he turned that house into a home for
He did.
dogs that were fighting dogs. And then people say, well, it's just a PR move. That's a hell of a PR move.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a PR move. And if that's the way you feel about things, then people are always going to be villains, and no one can ever, ever rectify the wrong that they've done. How can we be leftists and talk about restorative justice if we don't allow this man? He served his time, the maximum amount of time that he was to serve for what he did that. He gets out and tries to be a champion for this cause, but still people go, nah, fuck you. He still gets hate mail.
Yeah, I mean,
The
thing is you can't even say he tries to be like a face for like rehabilitation for fighting dogs. Like the guy literally puts a lot of time into it. He helped pass legislation in Virginia to make it completely illegal for dogs to fight, because when he got busted, it wasn't all the way like illegal. Like there was a gray area that Michael Vick tried to operate in, and unfortunately, like you said, he starts moving massive cash across state lines. That's wire fraud. Like come on. Um, but he's done a lot. But like I think this is the big kicker. Like you said, we live in this Me Too era.
Mhm.
And I mean, honestly, when I think about it, I think fighting dogs is disgusting, but it pales in comparison to sexual assault and rape. So I
Yeah,
think that is where Watson's probably gonna have to deal with this, like for a
the rest of his
long
life.
time coming. And like the kicker, I think this was one of the oddest things I saw on Twitter is, he signed a huge deal, $230 million guaranteed.
Mhm.
You know how much salary he's gonna lose this year?
How much?
$345,000
How's that? Oh,
because
because the first year was so little.
they structured his contract to where he would only make a little over $1 million.
But isn't that how from my understanding of football contracts, they are back end heavy.
They are, but with a deal like this where it's completely guaranteed, you can't make it back end heavy. It's got to be you're gonna have to like front, middle, and back load this bitch because it's big. But next year he'll count $90 million against the cap.
So he'll restructure next year.
Dude, the thing is right now the NFL salary cap's $205.2 million. That you're probably going to see it go through the roof, and by through the roof, probably see like a $10 to $15 million increase, because it's based on revenue projections from the prior season. What happened before last season? COVID. So they couldn't really adjust it because nobody made any fucking money, right?
Mhm.
So even if Watson pulls down 40% with all the young talent, um, you know, that's on the Browns that are going to be coming out of like their rookie deals that are going to be re-signed, Cleveland's still going to have money. They have the second most cap space in the NFL right now. A lot of that has to do with the weird first year of Watson's deal, but
But
still,
they
man.
couldn't have foresaw a 6-game suspension.
No, I think they were along the lines where I was thinking. I was thinking he was getting the year. Everybody's like he's going to get 12 games. I'm like, there's no fucking way.
Mhm.
With like with the way public perception was played, or like deals with sexual assault, sexual harassment. I was like, he's going to get the whole season, and he'll have sat out 2 straight years at that point. But I'll tell you when I kind of thought maybe things were going to work in his favor
Mhm.
is when this thing gets in front of the judge, Miss Robinson,
Yeah.
and then we don't hear anything for 2 months, right?
Mhm.
If he's going to get hit over the head with the book, I think the decision comes down quick and early, right? That's how a lot of, like, I guess, kind of defense cases are, and this is a former federal judge, Ms. Robinson, that's sitting on this. So, and then what I kind of thought was telling was 2 days ago, um, the NFLPA comes out and said, "We will not be, appealing the suspension,"
I saw
right?
that.
So when I saw that 2 days prior to this thing coming down, on like Friday or Saturday, I was like, at that point, I'm like, there's no fucking way he's getting the season. There's no way he's getting 12 games. I figured 8 at that point because, like, it's the season's 17 games now, so you can't like split it in half like you used to. But I mean, that's roughly half, right? So I'm not gonna lie, I was a little surprised at 6. And looking at the Browns' schedule with him coming back, and keep in mind, he's allowed to participate in practices throughout the preseason. He cannot be around the team for the first 3 weeks of the suspension. And in the last 3 weeks, he's allowed to practice and participate in like not game things with the Browns.
He can't
So
suit up for 6 games, from my understanding.
yeah, so he's not going to be coming in completely cold, right? But those first 6 games, like, honestly, I can see the Browns going 4-2 with Brissett under center easily.
Who's under center again?
Jacoby Brissett will be starting for the Browns this year. Josh Rosen, behind the red zone, or beyond the red zone's favorite, kind of first round QB whipping boy, Rosen was signed by the Browns this week.
I saw that.
So this makes his, I believe, 5th team.
I'm all about Rosen. Fucking. I love a story where someone gets to come back. Do you remember a guy named Tommy Maddox?
Oh yeah, Tommy Maddox. He played for the LA franchise in XFL 1.0, won the title, and then spun that into a deal with the Steelers after kind of flaming out with the Broncos, wasn't it?
He was never going to get on the field with the Broncos. Elway had a down year after maybe 1 or 2 years after not winning the Super Bowl, and I forget who in the front office decided we're going to draft this Maddox kid, and so Maddox was never going to get on the field. It was one of those situations that was like, my career ain't done. F you. And of course, we know Elway went on to win, 2 Super Bowls at the end of his career. So Tommy Maddox, if we want to say flamed out, fine. He flamed out. He just never got a shot. Goes to the XFL after he was selling insurance.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it was like he had a break in between his.
A long break.
Yeah.
A long break. And then he had, I think he went to the playoffs a couple of years with the Steelers.
I
believe Tommy Maddox is the in-between between Roethlisberger and Cordell Stewart, if I'm not mistaken.
You are absolutely correct.
Roethlisberger's like, look, we can't win a Super Bowl with the insurance guy, and he's old. But I love the Tommy Maddox story because it's one of those. Jim Plunkett's another story I love. Jim Plunkett was thought to be a huge bust. First overall pick, Heisman winner out of Stanford. Flames out with the Patriots, does not do well with the Niners, and he's a backup with the Raiders. He's a backup quarterback with the Raiders that wins 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
I love those stories. They're what makes sports fun to me. The redemption stories of these players.
What I loved when he signed the deal with the Browns on Twitter. His Twitter profile, like the bio just says quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. His, like, the header is the day he got drafted by the Cardinals, and his profile picture was the day he signed the deal with the Dolphins. So like, his shit's just all over the place.
He's 25.
And yeah, I was like, you know what? I respect the shit out of this guy.
The game has changed. We have to admit, the game has changed on a high school level. We talk about this all the time with guys not even really playing for a high school team anymore. It's your AAU ball.
Or like the
IMG.
Academy, IMG down in Florida. And I think it's not IMG, but there's another company that's going to be doing the same thing, but in Washington State, in order to market to the West Coast kids. So like I think, Coach said it best. We're going to shift to that model. Kids don't run track in the spring anymore and play basketball, after the football season. It's I focus on football. I focus on basketball. I focus on baseball.
Soccer.
Right?
Yeah. And it's sad because we're getting away from like fun and all of our socialist icons. Sports is kind of part of the program. Thomas Sankara, right? Sports is part of the program. Fidel. Sports is part of the program.
Okay, and not only did Sankara love him some sports, that motherfucker played a mean guitar. All right,
Man after my own heart.
All right, like the dude knew the inherent goodness of leisure activity, where you didn't have to get into theory and worry about where the clean water is coming from. I just need to chill out, play my fucking guitar, and then hit the pitch with the boys the next day, right? Like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, we have to be able, especially to sustain a movement where we're going to lose a lot more than we win, and we have lost a lot more than we won. We have to be able to have those recreational outlets. And the thing is we're getting to the point where we are being priced out of it. And it could just be you trying to play like beer league hockey. You can't afford ice time anymore.
Yeah.
You know what? Hey, I want to go play ball with the boys. Well, there's, underfunded city hoops that just, they're not standing anymore. So where do you have to go? Privately owned ones in gyms where you pay $30 to $40 a month that honestly a lot of us don't fucking have anymore.
Well, the monopolization of space, I think, is something that we need to talk about if we want to talk about sports and we want to talk about youth athletics, and even if we want to talk about sports as an organizing tool, right? It's hard to have sports as an organizing tool when all of the space that you need is privatized.
Yeah.
And I was watching, I've been watching these fight videos. I've been watching these street fight videos. I'm not going to lie. And one of the cats, what they were doing, I thought this was really interesting. Wherever neighborhood they were from, I couldn't even tell you what, I think it was in Virginia. They were walking around this project. They knocked on every door. It was like a weekend because everybody was at home. And they're like, we're teaching the kids boxing at the park in an hour. Bring the kids. We got gloves for them. We got pads for them. We're teaching them boxing. And seriously, went around. Hey, this is me. This is my wife. We're going to teach your kids boxing. And boys, girls, they didn't care. You're all going to learn some basic boxing stuff. Was it a ploy for them to go to the gym and spend money? I really don't know. But just using it as an organizational tool to get your foot in a community that has been, yes, I do watch Street Beats Doomsday, that's been priced out of weekend fun. Because what I found interesting was not just that they were doing this, all them fucking kids were at home.
Yeah. I mean, and that goes back to what we were talking about with Coach. Remember how we're pricing kids out of being able to play. And that's, I think, it was you that brought it up. That's why you see all these like middle class, upper middle class kids of former athletes themselves that have the infrastructure to train all the time. They get the best coaches, they have all this shit. And that's why we're seeing them all the fucking time. And like you already brought up, how many sons of former players are playing the NBA right now? You said it was like an astronomically high number.
Yeah.
Right. So like how many years is it going to be where it's literally going to be like as LeBron and Carmelo and all of those guys age out and retire and all their kids are coming up? And let's face it, LeBron James has got 3 boys that all play ball. Right. Yep. So like,
and this ain't like Joe Montana's kids where those guys just flamed all out because they wanted to drink and play at schools like Montana State.
Yeah.
These kids, again, they know they are brand from day one of AAU when they're 6, and they're treating themselves as such. What I'm saying is, as we all love sports, and some of us have an inkling of ability to be like, this is how you hold a bat. This is how you catch a ball. This is how you shoot. This is how you fight. These are all things that can help us organize in our communities. And we can start teaching kids and even get into parents' ear about how to look at things a little differently from a left perspective. No one goes to the church and says, I am a hardcore right winger. I hate Negroes and gays. And here's some barbecue. It's here's some barbecue.
I think it depends. I think it depends on what church you're going to,
Oh,
man. Because I've seen a few of them down here in North Carolina where that might be the selling point. Okay, like,
is this the anti-queer barbecue? All right,
hey, y'all.
Looks like we made
it. And they sound a lot like.
That's what I say to the anti-queer barbecue. That thing sounds horrible.
Oh my gosh. But like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And like, I got into this discussion with a comrade who is frustrated because she's having trouble like starting a mutual aid like group. And I said, dude, you know, that is always rough because you have to like dedicate so much time to fundraising, and then you're trying to like kind of build cadre. And you know, I told her what you need to do is stick to something like you're strong at. She's a great artist. I'm like, it can come down to something as easily as starting a YouTube channel and you're talking about theory and other things while you're drawing.
Yep.
Right. Or, you know, I mean, I am a big proponent of community. Like, I'm with you, man. You know, we talked about this before, community efforts, you know, and whether it's, I think we should be doing essentially everything the Panthers did, providing free breakfast and lunch. We should be doing literacy drives. We should be doing, you know, school tutors. Like you said, let's fucking get in gyms and teach, like, play ball with kids. Let's teach them, like you said, how to catch a football or whatever your strengths are. Yeah. We need to package that together and then start taking it to the communities, because we are seeing more and more children are getting left behind because our schools are struggling. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but in Wake County, North Carolina, which is literally one of the fastest growing population centers in the United States, they are 400 teachers short to start school in 2 weeks, right? Like, if the state is failing this badly, it behooves the communities to start filling in those gaps, because I think we've seen, especially with the reaction to COVID, that the state cannot fill gaps when disasters happen. So it falls on us that we have to do it. And it can be something as simple as sport or art, or maybe you're a big fucking nerd like me who literally has read, you know, Reform or Revolution. I'm reading The Failure of Nonviolence. You know, I got Notes of a Native Son literally just sitting right here in front of my laptop. And I'm like, okay, who wants to talk a little James Baldwin, civil disobedience with a firearm, as well as a little bit of theory? You know, like, that's me though. Like you said, let's find strength that we can kind of carry on and use that to organize with, because like we have to start doing something a little more proactive, you know, than what we're doing now, because shit's getting bad. Maybe I'm the pessimist here, Jason. I things are getting bad, and we're going to have to really start leaning in on each other in our communities rather than, you know, the big national and statewide shit.
I you know, again, growing up in the Bay Area, going to schools, Panthers kids and stuff, you're hip to the breakfast program and everything. You get it. But I've never had to lean on my community, because I feel like my community was kind of always there. For the most part. Living here, where I don't know anyone, I don't speak the language. I've been, I've kind of carved out a nice little community of people that definitely save me. You know, even I've busted 4 tires since I've been here, because I live on this dirt road. Busted 4 tires in less than a year.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Thank God I have a dude that lives in the front that speaks Spanish that takes me down to the tire place and makes sure I don't get effed over on buying a tire. Right? Because I wouldn't know what to do. They could have charged me $1 million trillion and I would have paid it.
Yeah.
Community is extremely important, and I think we lost that. And when you think about Matt Taibbi wrote a piece last week that I wasn't the biggest fan of, because it was kind of about that Alex Jones documentary. But the woman that made the Alex Jones documentary, before she made that, she made one about, she didn't say it was about incels, but it was about incels.
Yeah.
Was it a little forgiving? Yes. Did Matt Taibbi play that down? Yes. But the point was, there's a large segment of our society of disaffected young men, and it starts at a young age when you get that way, and they're disconnected from community. How can you even try out for a little league team if it's that expensive and your parents are like, we don't really have money for that?
Yeah.
Or you're just not going to be very good. The rest of
Yeah.
these guys are playing club ball.
Yeah. And see, that's what kills me, man. Like I wasn't that good at baseball. I had fun playing, and I maybe only
Thank
played,
you.
I only played like 2 innings a game, but I got to hang out with my boys. I got to eat Big League Chew. Like I got to fucking bullshit about Nintendo, like while my boys were like being awesome
All
on the
stars.
field and I
Yeah.
sucked. Right?
We
Like I
gotta
was
we gotta find a way to bring it back to that point, because it does make me sad that we're losing people. I don't like hearing about school shooters. We keep reading about Uvalde, but we did a whole show on This Is Revolution going back to Columbine, and that wasn't even the only one that year. No one talks about Jonesboro.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's a great point. Like you got to think if you can get active and connected in your community over whatever, like fuck, dude, uh, figure out a way to like get in a gym or something, set up some TVs, have a Madden tournament, whatever floats your fucking boat, right? Like find your strength and get involved because you never know like the positive influence you're gonna have, right? Like I work with a mutual aid group between where I live and Raleigh. It's not big, but we try. We bring hot food so they have something hot to eat when we get there. We have like some non-perishables that they can carry with them. But like, there's this giant black man, Jason. He's the biggest black dude I've ever seen in person. Like he's like 6'9", like 300 pounds. And the first day we set up the table and had all this food, a couple, I was wearing a shirt that talked about not being a scab, support the strike. And he's like, what, you guys are pro-union? We're like, yes, sir, we are. And he's like, what are you, commies? And we're like, well, I am, and she is, and they are. And that person over there is an anarchist,
Mhm.
right? And he's like, you guys are all fucking gross and anti-American. And I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you, right? So we go back a couple weeks later because we try and do it every other week just because we don't have a big fundraising thing. So, we got to save the money up. And we brought a chessboard with pamphlets and other stuff that they can take with them if they're interested. We don't like say, hey, if you want to eat, you better talk some commie shit with us before you like, right? And he comes by and he's like, well, you guys came back. And we're like, are you still hungry? Do you still need socks? Because we brought you socks for you giant man who couldn't fit any of the other socks you brought last time. Right. And, he's like, well, my name's Gilmore. And I was like, Gilmore, it's nice to meet you, man. We brought pizza this time for hot food. I know you said something about like having some rotted out teeth. You were having problems. Well, we've got Nutrigrain bars that are soft, so you don't have to like bite down hard. And just like some shit like that. And he's like, but communists and anarchists don't give a shit about people. And I'm like, that's where you're wrong, my friend. This, me being a communist, is what drives me out here to help people because I do care. And he's like, I didn't grow up like that. And I'm like, well, I didn't either. I'm 40 years old. I didn't grow up like that. Commies were bad when I was a kid, but I was like, we're going to keep trying to do these things. Like we can't get out as often as we want to. We want to start, bringing tents out for you guys, or maybe like hammocks so you can get away maybe from like higher areas where cops are going to bother you. You can just go find some woods, throw the hammock up, and you got a place to sleep. And he took a pamphlet. He's like, well, if you guys give a shit, he's like, I've been getting shit on for the last 10 years while I've been homeless. So I might as well try something different. I'm like, dude, have at it, man. Like if you want to talk, we'll be here in 2 weeks and we can talk about any questions you might have. So like, it's just little things like that goes a long way. And it could be playing a video game with a kid or somebody, that one could pull them away from going down that path of becoming,
Yeah.
something horrible. you know, or you just help them realize who they fucking are in this kind of weird ball of chaos that we call a failing late stage capitalist society. So, it's wow, I'm ending on something good. That's awesome.
Well, we had look. This is Revolution has had some doomy shows. We had Daniel Bessner on last Tuesday to bring doom and gloom, and then we had our news show, which was doomy gloomy, which I was a part of, and then we had Derek Varn on Saturday for 3 hours of doom and gloom. So I don't mind the hope as I'm trying to find some myself. But thank you for doing that, because literally, Mac, you got me away from writing this thing about Woodstock 69 to 99 that is just angry and very like hedonism has never changed from 69 to 99. This has always been a corporate event.
I mean, like sometimes, like I've caught my writing bug again, which I'm really happy about. So, like on my Substack, I put up the book review of Work to Live, Maximilian Alvarez's book, which is fucking phenomenal. So, if anybody wants a great book, read it. And it felt good just to get something out there, and it was something, just my thoughts about the book. I didn't like do an academic book review. I'm not going to bore people to death. Like eventually I'd like to get a good enough clientele where people are actually paying me for my word. So like, I don't want to drive you away with a dry, fucking boring ass book review, but it was a great book. It felt nice to write. And sometimes you just gotta like, dude, I'm a pessimistic as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like, you just gotta take the good with the bad, man. You have to. Otherwise, we're going to be like, I don't want to be the miserable old fucking commie if we win this thing,
Oh,
like
dude,
that just sits in the back, Jason. Like, you know what?
The old dude at the punk shows.
Yeah, we won, but I'm still not happy about it.
Oh, bro. Look, before I come on this show, right? We do Feldman. Pascal and I do Feldman on to Mondays, and we're doing Feldman, and I think because me and Pascal were on such similar wavelengths because of these shows, we did the reading we had to do for the shows, and then I forget what he's writing, and I just finished this script, this Kayfabe script, which is gonna be, I'm so excited for it. But anyway, Feldman hits us with this shit like, you got to vote for Biden, and we have to all the leftists, we have to get together because the primaries are coming up. We have to band together and vote for the Democrats, and we give him what we're going to talk about because we want to use that show as an advertisement for our Tuesday show.
Yeah.
So they're like, what do you guys want to talk about? We're like, oh, we're doing a show about why the black middle class is declining and has declined over these years because of the industrial sector being deindustrialized and the financialization of the economy in the 70s and 80s. And here's an article. We were ready for that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not here. I'm not ready to talk about fucking C-SPAN and gun control. Is like, what do you think about gun control? It's like, I don't care about this conversation. I was like, this conversation sucks. I said, unless you change people's material conditions, then it's theater.
Mm-hmm.
And there's at one point, because he's trying to make this point that, yeah, that's important, but so is voting. And of course, voting to a certain degree is important to a degree.
Like my buddy said, it's a toolbox, or it's a tool in a toolbox. And I said, that's fine, but if we're talking about how I feel about it, it's like that really small screwdriver that you use to tighten screws in your glasses.
On your glasses.
Yeah, that's all it is, but I'm with you, man. Like, I do it because the last thing I want to do is just I guess, knowingly allow fascism to kind of like flood in, at least I could put a speed bump in front of them while we try and workshop and,
Oh, I mean, look,
you know,
Mac, if you were like, sometimes we get hit with some stuff and we're not ready for it. And Pascal is supremely eloquent and diplomatic. I am neither of those things.
yeah, I
And
wouldn't be either, dude.
I was like, what? I was like, dude, that's not like, and it's part of it, part of it, Feldman is doing this, right? He's doing this at some point. He goes, okay, this has got those guys, fired up. So I'm just going to poke them some more.
Yeah.
But, oh yeah, at one point he was like, well, during the Obama administration, there was these, we got more solar panels. I was like, dude, that's the equivalent of recycling.
Yeah.
So are you serious? You know how much fracking happened under that administration?
Oh yeah, dude. Like, and it's just, people are like, like Biden just and Buttigieg, just go out and get that electric vehicle. Yeah, bro, because I can afford a car payment. And two, have you seen where the lithium comes from?
Oh, bruh. Have you seen that article that's circulating where it's the woman wrote a thing? It was like how to feel better after a relationship, invest in real estate.
Oh yeah, and I mean, then we had the other horrible bit of Twitter discourse, like which celebrities have flooded the earth with more CO2, and it was Taylor Swift, but then all her little fan people were like, listen, she rents that private plane out, so it's not all
She doesn't
her.
own her G6. She
Yeah.
leases it.
And then get this, I was like, someone was like, she makes up for all that pollution with her art and making people happy. And I was like, you're fucking kidding with this, right? Like, this is a joke. This is a gag. This is a bit. And she was just like, no, for real. Look at all the happiness she brings to millions of people all over the world. And I'm like, oh, fuck me. I am not responding to this. I am not getting pulled into this shit. I was like, no way. Like, I put my phone down and I was like, I'm unplugging my laptop. I'm turning it off.
Mac, I'm going to say this again as we sign off. Greatest thing that I ever did. We got an intern that runs This Is Revolution Twitter. Quinn, I love you like a play cousin. And now my Twitter is just metal, toys, and comics. It's it.
You know what? Hey, everybody, start pumping us up with super chats and hitting my Substack so I can hire an intern to run my Twitter. And then I can just make another one that's just like music, sports, comics, and me bullshitting with Jason.
That's all. That is all my personal shit. That's all I want to look. I want to look at toys and silly movies. We're gonna have another silly movie night.
Which one are you doing this time?
I'm either gonna do Ninja 3: The Domination or 9 Deaths of the Ninja.
Okay, well, if you do it Saturday, I'm off. So let me know and I'll get down on this, man.
I'm doing it on my birthday, August 19th.
The 19th?
Yes.
I think I'm off. I have to check my calendar, but
check your calendar. If you're off, watch one of these ridiculous movies with me. We will laugh for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's all I want to do when I'm not being serious. And if anyone knows me personally, they know the moment this thing gets turned off, I go into another room to go do more production for the next day and video shit. And it's you're never done.
Oh God, no, dude. I'm noticing that, but I guess I've kind of like I found a good balance in my life because like probably early September we're gonna get You Don't Know History fired back up.
Good.
I'm just getting all the I'm trying to get like 10 or 11 episodes sacked away just in case. Like it's been busy, but it's like it's fun. But on that note, PMC brought up a great point to close us out. If you are ever feeling sad, maybe a little pessimistic, a little down, just remember T Swift is going to unite us all and we'll live under a glorious dictatorship of the proletariat with Taylor Swift as first citizen. Okay, that's it. She's going to lead us all to the promised land.
This is all I have to say about that.
You'd be surprised how many people love to crack.
And I got a new drop coming Tuesday I got a pro wrestling drop coming. Do you remember when Booker T was doing that promo?
Which one? I used to love his promos.
When he accidentally dropped the M-bomb on Hogan?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
So Paul Prescott is our guest on This Is Revolution tomorrow, and best believe Paul is going to get hit with that at least 15 times. That's the one, Doomsday Prophet. That is the one. And that and look, I'm not even going to unveil it until because Paul is probably watching right now, getting ready. Paul, you won't be ready, Paul. Prescott.
Oh man. Oh.
So this is all like, again, we get serious, we have fun. I appreciate everyone watching. I appreciate Mac, especially because Mac is going to be one of the people that we got to lean on while we're all gone for Kuba's wedding. So
I got you.
Oh my God, I told you Paul Prescott was watching. Look at the comments. I told you Paul was watching. I knew Paul was watching.
Touche, Mr. Prescott. Touche.
Paul was watching. Paul, I want you to understand. I sent it to Paul already. I sent the clip to Paul, and I'm like, I'm going to unveil this on Prescott, and we are going to laugh for at least 45 minutes of tear because he's never going to know when it's coming.
Oh, dude, that's the best part too. Like, and like, I mean, that's half the time when it's me, you, and Marcus, and like I know you're busy a lot of times when it's Marcus and I, but like when we're all three of us here and we just start acting stupid, and I just start like crying from laughing so hard, right? And of course I make the mistake. Marcus and I both make the mistake of like drinking far too much beer, and we're laughing, and we both have to piss so bad. Like it's the fucking best, man. It's just
this Monday sometimes is a bit for me. It's kind of a bit, but I also, Paul, I want you to know we're ready to plug your show, David Feldman today. Me and Pascal are all ready. Pascal's like the day before he calls me. He's like, "Yeah, I'm ready for Paul. I read his article," and I'm like, "Oh, let's go." We were reading, Paul, your research material. We didn't just read your article, you light-skinned son of a bitch. We read the goddamn research material. We're so ready. This motherfucker goes, "Do you think this is racist?" What? Can't change the test after I crammed.
Oh man, I've been on a couple shows like that. It really pisses me off too. Like it's been some history shows where like, hey, you're familiar with this kind of avenue of history, and I'm like, yes, and I'll go through my books and I check all my notes, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. No one can make me look like an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll log in and like, yo, Mac, what's going on? Hey, we decided we're gonna get somebody actually from that country to cover that.
So you can go fuck right off.
We're gonna want you to talk about this, and I'm like, I have 6 minutes before we go live to look at Wikipedia. Like, no, man, you'll just be in cold, and I'm like, that's not why you had. You know what? Fuck it.
Who does? Yeah, fuck. I hate that. But now you guys just got a glimpse on how the sausage is made behind the scenes. But Mac, thank you once again for coming through and making this show what it is. So if you are watching the show and you're a patron of the show, either late tonight or first thing tomorrow, I will have the link up to the Fantasy Football League. I'm actually pretty stoked for this. We're going to do, you'll see the team, the TIR Central Committee. Yep, we haven't decided what the prizes are. It should just be like a pack because you said make it a bunch of TIR merch.
Yeah, like some TIR swag, man.
So we'll do like what? The new mugs, the new mouse pads, and like the hoodie, or is it not hoodie weather? The shirt.
I mean, yeah. I mean, fuck. I mean, I don't really have hoodie weather anymore except for like 3 weeks because it's not global warming, it's just climate change. But I'm dying down here like 11 months out of the year. But yeah, remember, guys, there's only gonna be 14 slots. I have one of them. Central Committee's got one, so that leaves 12 open. So when Jason gets that link up, first come, first serve. And now
I'm excited.
maybe-
I'm excited. Look, there's a good chance the TR is going to lose. I just want to see how good some of these, because there's a lot of sports shit talkers on this channel.
Oh yeah.
I want to see what Claw does. I want to see what good JB does. I want to see what Patrick with the long name does.
Yep.
I am excited for this. Is Marcus going to be part of my team or no?
I think Marcus was talking about doing his own, but we might want to double tap. Marcus was under the weather tonight. He claims it's not COVID. I'm hoping it's not for his sake, but
again,
yeah. If Joe Biden has shown us anything, you can get it twice back to back really easy. So
yes, Patrick, we're doing fantasy football. I'll have the link up. Like I said, if not later tonight, I have to record my voiceover for the upcoming video essay, and hopefully I'll have it up tonight.
And again, on the 29th, we will be doing the draft live. Jason and myself and Marcus and whoever else from the Central Committee wants to jump in. And every one of you that gets a team, your picks are going to be streamed live for the world to see. So, like, we figured that could just be a fun kind of like chill episode to do while shit talking and probably laughing way too hard when I take a kicker in the third round. I don't know. I might do it. Got to keep you all on your toes.
This will be fun. This will be fun. So again, I'll have it up as soon as possible. I wanted to have it up today. That's all my fault. Sorry. Look, man, if I could show you how gorgeous it is outside.
Oh, dude, get outside and enjoy it. It's not heat. That's like,
and then my landlord gave me the best news ever. She was like, I'm going to send an exterminator. Is it okay if they get your deck? Because I haven't talked to you, and I'll say this real quick before we leave. There was a scorpion.
Oh, no, you did tell me about the scorpion.
I tell you about the scorpion. No, I told you about the first scorpion I saw where I cut it out with a machete. There's another one as I was coming home a couple nights ago, and I thought it was like a cricket or something. I was like, oh, it's a big cricket. And I looked down, and it was a scorpion, and so I screamed, and like the scorpion screamed, but I ran back, and the scorpion ran towards my door. And then he paused on my welcome mat, on my Mexican dollar store welcome mat. He just paused there, and I had nothing in my hand to like shoo him away. And I was this close to checking into a hotel.
Oh, man. Yo.
And being like, hey, dude, it's your world, bro. You can fucking have it.
You just throw your keys at him?
I was going to throw my keys at him, but then I was like, if I throw my keys at him and he doesn't, because he put his shit up. You know how they have the stinger when they get scared? Yeah. The stinger comes up like it's about to fuck you up. So his stinger thing came up, and then his claws came up. So he was like this. So in my mind, he was like, bring it. But in real life, he was like, oh!
I mean, when I say throw your keys at him, I would have just been like, yo, here, man, you can stay in the house. I'm going to go get my hotel room.
So this is what I did. A new guy just moved in next door, and he has a mat in front of his door. I grabbed his mat, threw it on the scorpion, ran, shaking the keys, and I get in the house. Like, oh. So we do the show Saturday for hella long, and I kept telling myself, I didn't open my door Saturday until 3 p.m. because I swore that he had called for reinforcements.
Oh my god!
He had the scorpion homies. So as we are doing the show, I see my neighbor, and he looks very frustrated in the window. I could see the kitchen window. He walks by because he's like, "This motherfucker done stole my mat." So now,
don't touch that mat. There's something under
there. Some kind of weird ass mat thief complaining to the landlord. I don't know who the fuck is living in that other place. Who the fuck does that?
You stole my fucking bat.
Stole my fucking. I was
Oh.
so mad, Mac, because when I left the house, I was like, should I wear my boots? But the weather here doesn't change. If it's 75 in the day, it's about 70 at night. A
Okay.
nice chill breeze. I was like, you know what? I have these light shoes I'll wear. I live by the ocean. That scorpion came out and called me a bitch. That scorpion was like, you should have wore the boots, ho. My house.
He like lifts up the other mat. He's like, "What's up, dude?"
Yeah, I was so scared. I was so scared. I've been opening the door, man. I've been opening the door like this. Like Debo finna come out.
Oh my god.
But yeah, the scorpion's a son of a bitch. And apparently the landlord says, oh, I'm bringing an exterminator by tomorrow. I was like, you bring him by, I'm finna make his ass breakfast.
Yeah. How's he take his coffee, man?
Yeah.
I think
you have no idea. I made a whole meal. When these motherfuckers installed the good Wi-Fi, I made a whole meal. I was like, y'all want some French fries? I just fried them up just for y'all. I'm trying to get connected. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. And we are out.